All right, can someone tell me a short recap of what we covered in the last class? Let's start with someone right at the back there. He has a privilege. What did we discuss in the last class? Were you present? Yes. Okay, tell me. Do you remember? What did we cover? It gives me a feedback that I am teaching. How much are you guys learning? It gives me that feedback.
What is the difference between a leader and a manager?
A leader and a manager.
You were discussing some qualities.
Some roles?
Yes.
Leadership roles?
Leadership roles.
Okay.
And about the situations where the leader emerges.
Okay. Good.
Then we also talk
Good.
About trust. What are the basic components of trust?
Basic component.
we define trust in various.
Good. Okay. So today we have a case discussion, but as you just said, before the case discussion, all right, we will have a little bit of discussion on management and leadership, in particular styles, leadership styles. Okay. We've talked of roles, now we talk of style. What is the meaning of leadership style? It means fashion, or what do you understand by leadership
What
style?
is the modus operandi of leader? How,
It's a very vague word.
So
what are the set of parameters he is defining, then how he is approaching the problems,
Mm.
and what is his
whether he leads by example or he just gives guidelines and just monitors them.
Yeah.
whether he actually involved
So how would you try to define this style? I know it's very vague. Leadership style. What is style? The way he dresses and
So
his physical, the way he talks, personality. Is that what you mean by style?
So that is
a problem or a situation.
Approach to a problem. That is one way of putting a finger on what the style of the leader. So, approach to problem solving, right? Approach to problem. Everyone agrees with it, or any objections on this? We are discussing, gentlemen, what is leadership style before we come to the case. We have a case on leadership which we will discuss, but before that, style. And style, I just showed a slide here saying style is a very vague word, but it is often used to describe successful leaders. Bill Gates, Dhirubhai Ambani. Okay. It is difficult to attach a single style to a leader. Styles of leadership also differ between cultures. These are the statements we have shown. Now we are trying to say little more in depth, what do we understand by style? So, what Devarsh has suggested is approach to problem solving. This is one of the components by which we can put a finger on what is the style of a leader. Anything else? Polash. I know you are still not settled down, but let me throw a question at you. How would you?
So it is how he manages his subordinates, whether he has a democratic way of managing or whether he is
How?
a democratic leader.
He manages. Manages whom? His
Followers.
followers. Everyone agrees with that? You said something about democratic. Whether democratic or autocratic. Autocratic, etc. Okay. Now, when we've said this, I want to add something, and that is all these styles which we talk about and all the studies, and there have been several studies. This is one area where a lot of research studies have gone on leadership, and now there are some studies on followership. All these studies have revealed one thing, all right, and that is that there are two broad types of styles, two broad types which are very broad. There are leaders or managers, I use them synonymously now for the sake of this discussion, because we are basically talking about business leaders, in the business setting. There are two broad types, which is very broad, and what are those? Can you tell me? We have seen various studies, the history, we have seen the Ohio studies, before that the Iowa studies, the Michigan State studies, and so on. And the contingency model, Fiedler's contingency, but what is coming out again and again? Very two broad areas pertaining to style.
You had mentioned
Leading by
initiating structure and consideration.
Initiating structure, one study shows initiating, it's a very involved term that he has chosen, but what does it mean? Excuse me. Initiating structure, this is one.
And consideration is the other.
Right. Consideration. Consideration. These are the two broad. Would you agree with it? You can call this as, let us say, humanistic, all right? Humanistic, you can call it people orientation, more or less same, but it fits in the broad framework. Here you can call it as task orientation, okay? Or you can call it as performance orientation, etc. Therefore, all these studies have brought out two features, and as I said here in this slide, styles of leadership also differ in culture, okay, this is one difference, but again even across cultures this broad difference between the approach of a leader or a manager to manage initially generally remains the same. There may be difference in degree, but it remains the same generally, okay? And it is difficult to attach a single style to a leader. So, what happens is the style also varies with the situation, what is known as contingency, okay? So, it varies with situation, varies with culture, but by and large it remains either a people kind of orientation when you manage, all right. I won't use the word either, I will say it is a combination, because it is situation specific, and also apart from the situation, in the same situation also the leader may have to use a combination, a judicious combination of both people oriented kind of management and task oriented kind of management, and that I think is common sense. Would you agree? Isn't it common sense? If you do initiating structure, would someone like to say? This is a complicated word used for a simple meaning. No.
So the structure of relationship between the leader and the followers is defined.
All right. And what is the other one? Consideration. So initiating structure means you are basically concerned with initiating and getting tasks done. They have used a complicated word, but essentially it means that a orientation between, or orientation focused more on getting the job done. Now let us say in the case of teaching, if you consider let us say conceptual analogy, that in the classroom setting the instructor is a leader and the students are follower. Now if you admit that concept, then each instructor also would basically, whilst he plays the leadership role, all right, he will fall into that category. There will be some who I dare say would be more concerned with getting the course covered, all the topics covered, getting the assignments in place, giving the marks, and there would be a few, I guess, who would be more concerned to see that he gives the lecture, but is a learning process going on. So that type may encourage people to come after the class is over, meet him. He may have a free, give free access to students. And what is his, why is he doing it? Because he is falling into the category of more people orientation, because he feels the task is important. Okay. Now the problem comes in a company when you have skewed approach of management style. You have some approach where there is minimal people orientation on a scale, whatever you design, and there is a minimal task orientation. What happens then? There is a total chaos or lack of any leadership, and it's not very uncommon, mind you. Means the system kind of runs on its own. There is no leadership. Okay, there is a impoverishment, as some of these studies say, impoverishment. There is no leader. And the other one, is it equally bad if you have very high task orientation style of a leader and also equally high people orientation? Is it possible, or is it a contradiction in terms? What do you feel? Can you practice it yourself? High people orientation and high task orientation?
So it can be possible. You have to motivate your.
He says it is possible.
No, sir, not possible.
The case
One has to strike a balance.
They were in deep thought. Tell me,
So it is
what is it possible? Because remember, each of us will have to practice some kind of style when you have people reporting to you, isn't it?
So leadership is primarily situation specific. I mean, for example, in the case of Anna Hazare that we were given, we could see the same person who could be people oriented at times and task oriented at other times.
He says that situation specificity is very important for style. Yes, tell me.
If we think of a case of a project in terms of project management,
Yes.
like there is a task given to you and you have to finish that in a particular time period.
Yes.
And so you have to follow the first initiating the structure, that is having the deadlines fixed and the job has to be done. So you cannot think of a mix of both styles. You have to go for the first one.
Yes and no. I don't agree fully with you, because the job has to be done. We know there is no dispute. But the style which you adopt is how you are going to get the job. Are you going to get the job done by being very much task oriented, or are you going to be a kind of motivational leader and say, hey guys, we got this project. Okay? It's so important for us to get this project done on time. Right? I want each of you to give a lending hand. Let's sit together as often as we want and as long as we want, doesn't matter. And let each of us not think that each has only one specific compartmentalized task. Let us try and help each other so that we are focused on getting the project done in time. Now, all this what I am saying, what does it show? The style you are approaching or adopting is more humanistic or people oriented style or task oriented? Both.
Yes, sir. So you are motivating your workforce.
We are trying to motivate. What is the alternative approach? I call people and say, gentlemen, I am very disappointed at the way this project is going. We have this bar chart here. These are the activities which should have been completed by today. We are sitting on 12th of February, and you see we have been lagging here, here, here. Who is responsible for this? Yes, Mr. Polash. What is your excuse? I want this done jaldi, quick. What is the new target which you give me? Polash gives a target. Tell me, what is your target? And I don't want you to slip on this target. I employ threat. Why? Not because I dislike polish, but because I am task oriented. My passion is task, to the extent of shifting the people orientation in the background. I may not even know that Polash was sick for 2 days. I don't ask also. The same thing, how would you do it if you are a people oriented? Tell me, how would you, what would you tell Polash? You are a people oriented style.
I would have asked him what is the reason behind.
How? I want you to ask. You better practice all this. How would you ask? You say, Polash, what has happened? Normally you always have been doing things on time. What is the problem? Tell me, can I help you? And Polash says, sir, actually I was sick, 3-4 days I was sick. Acha, that is, have you seen a doctor? No, sir. No, that is not good. You go and see a doctor today. Don't come tomorrow and take a day off if you are not. And so on. What am I doing? I am investing in Polash doing a better job, having a more commitment tomorrow, the day after and hereafter. Isn't it? So, one of the ways of people do pedagogy is role play. Now, here is a subject where role play, in human behavior can drive a point. But say on the other hand, Polash takes advantage of it. Okay? Then what happens? So, the situation changes, right? And then you have to employ other means. So, we come back to this. It is difficult to attach a single style to a leader. Francis, tell me, you are looking doubtful, or is it that my interpretation of your physiognomy, I always feel you are a little skeptical, a little doubtful, or do others feel the same way? Francis is cool always. Offer a comment. Let's hear Francis first.
When leaders have very peculiar characteristics, we define them. It's not.
What do you think? What is your interpretation of your own style? You will very soon get a job, and many have got jobs now. You will have 6 months training, then a title is given to you, print a card, you feel very thrilled. Assistant manager or manager. It's a terrific thrill. But with it comes responsibility. You immediately find you have got 5 or 6 guys there, one clerk, he is old, he is about 57 years old, looks grouchy, you have to manage him. You have a whiz kid, okay, who is 1 year senior to you, but did something wrong, so he didn't get promoted. So he has a lot of, you have to handle all that. His attitude is, all right, let's see, here's this youngster come, 1 year younger, let's see how he's going to manage this department and so on. So what style will you employ? What do you think you're good at? Yeah.
There are two styles which are switched. A person might have a different style of organizing things, but he's in an organization, and if there's a particular style, a different style in the organization. It's generally a person, a manager or leader switching between both the roles. When it's task which is totally under him, he might do it in say a task-oriented way or.
Okay, what you say I like. You say switching. Let's summarize it. Switching, okay, what does it mean? Changing from one to the other. Switching styles, all right? That means he has to exhibit versatility, isn't it? Versatility is very valued in management, because then you can do a large number of jobs equally well. So, versatility is a very prized attribute for managers. When you rate people under you, say he has versatility. So, again I think it's coming out again and again that there are 2 or 3 things. One is the people orientation, which is one broad kind of style. The other is task or performance orientation, which is the other broad. And in between, it's not compartmentalized. In managing or in leading a group, you have to have a happy blend of both these kind of styles and many hues in between, nuances. Okay?
Just like to add, much also depends on the type of task at hand. Because
Type
if
of
it's
task.
a knowledge-oriented job, for example,
Right.
the minimum amount of supervision is needed. But if the work is in a factory, for example, then the style of leadership of necessity has to be different.
Right.
No, sir, I differ on this point. Sir.
He differs. I was going to differ, but I said let's hold it. Someone else is smarter than me. He'll differ first.
Sir,
Tell me, Niraj.
Yeah. Sir, the kind
Remember
of,
what he said?
Yes, sir.
He said in a factory you require more supervision.
I mean, I was just giving an example.
I
of
got
factory,
it.
necessary.
But now you don't. Let's discuss it. Let's discuss it.
So the same kind of work by two different persons, they'll employ different kind of styles and they'll perform well. So it's not the kind of work dependent, it's dependent upon how they handle the situation and what are their orientation, what are their future plans, whether they want to be a very task oriented person or want to be a people oriented person. So that is dependent upon person to person and situation to situation. Kind of work is just a medium to show your style.
Let's have a little more interaction from the back. Srivat, you tell me. What is it? Francis, you can answer later. Think about it. What kind of style you prefer? What you adopt? Tell me.
No, I would go along with Raj, saying that it's the organization which at least has some amount of influence on how you're going to handle the situation.
I think that is acceptable. If you are within an organizational framework, okay, to some extent, you might consider it a constraint, or might consider it as a facilitating factor, but it will mold your style. But not quite. It gives you a framework. I mean, within the framework, we always have a lot of opportunity, to blossom, to show our own style. Well, as I was saying, we can, I think we have discussed this enough, but I think the point which has been brought home is that there are two basic types. You have to have a combination of both. You can't just do one or the other. And the combination very often will depend, very often, on the situation. At other times, it may depend on other factors, like you just brought out a point in discussion. You brought it out about the organization in which you are. So these are, there may be more. These are the limiting factors, all right, which may facilitate a style or it may inhibit a style. But having said that, you have to show versatility, and you will be only as successful as the skill which you acquire, okay, in exhibiting style. Because ultimately, remember, you have to get the work done well in organization. Work done well in organization. These words are pregnant with meaning. Work done. This is one. Well. Well in bracket long term and short term. So you can drive your team hard and get short term results, but they may be cheesed off in the long run. Some of them want to transfer and they want to go away. It happens, particularly in sales jobs. You drive your sales team too hard. They made a target, you say congratulations, you do a bit of hoopla, have a party, but the next morning you say, okay, now forget what you achieved. What about the next quarter? So driving hard also has its own problems. So work has to be done as a manager. That's why that's your job. You have to do it well, not slip short, and you have to do it both in the short term and the long term. You're going to be around in that company for a long time. Now styles therefore become very important to achieve this. Okay, any questions?
Do these styles necessarily have to be rigid for a person? I mean, he's found his organization, he's found the style of the organization, and he has a framework. So once he knows, okay, this is my style, fits in the framework, does he have to continue with the style? Because it could happen that the organization keeps changing its style.
Because the change is, what have we said, there's a cliche we always say, no? If there's anything permanent in life, what is it? Change. So all these studies that we do are how to perform and do it excellently in an environment which is changing. What you are saying, if the environment changes and we accept it, you will have to adapt the style probably to continue to do well in the change environment, is it not?
But then what is your
My
how do you learn on it?
Huh?
Because your past experience may not be enough for that.
No, it's not. Peter Drucker has gone on record to say, moment you get a promotion, be happy, but then start thinking, because what got you this promotion is not going to get you the next promotion. Why? Because your job has changed. Your job has changed. So you put on your thinking cap, right? All these skills, knowledge, and hopefully the attitude which we are trying to mold here in these 2 years, fall back on that. Start thinking.
So if that is the case, then why even bother to have a style? Try to get the job done. That's all.
That is, in order to get it done, what did I say? You have to have some style of doing it. Did I not role play? Shall I do it again? About task oriented style. Huh? That's clear.
We need not deliberately cultivate a particular style. It evolves on its own as the task and as the work is given to us.
Yes and no, I don't know, Palash. Nothing in life just comes on its own. Few lucky ones, you know. The brilliant guys who don't study much and they do well and so on. But I think for the average mortal like me and maybe some of you, it helps to try and cultivate a style by stimulating your thought processes, falling back on what you are learning now. You know, someone who hasn't had the benefit of an MBA education, they don't even know these concepts. They somehow bumble along, isn't it? And intuitively they learn. But do you think it is fair that after having spent all this money and time learning all this, that you still go only intuitively, or you supplement it with some of the knowledge, skills, and hopefully insights, attitude which you gain here? I think answer is yes. It's a rhetorical question. You should employ that. MBA teaching that way gives you a powerful basket of knowledge and skills. It's up to you to use it. Try it out. It's great to experiment also. How people respond. And you have constraints of the organization and its culture, but at the same time, wherever you are, whatever may be constrained, believe you me, there will always be room for you to experiment and innovate. Always there will be room. And it's your attitude. If you say that, look, this organization is dead because it's conservative, it's old, you tell the boss or anyone anything, they say no, 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 that's okay for other organizations, not for us. No, we are in this industry, it doesn't work here. Don't get demotivated with it. There is always ways in which you can bring something new, bring in change. Okay? Right. So, I will quickly run through, we have discussed all this, but I will quickly run through, some of it you can read later. All right? You have a sort of history here, Douglas McGregor, everyone has heard of theory X and theory Y, all right? Again the same broad framework which we just discussed. Iowa studies, Michigan studies, all right? Ohio State studies, Fiedler's contingency model, all right? Then you have this, you can read up all later, it comes back to the same thing, all right? This is a charismatic leadership style, that means inspirational. If you want to transform something, bring in great change in organization, you have the transformational kind of leadership which is charismatic or inspirational, all right? Envisioning, energizing, enabling, okay? Then you have a continuum, theory X, theory Y, subordinate centered, boss centered. That means you, all right, are boss centered, autocratic, democratic, closed, general. So, this is an analogy, a concept they are seeing that everyone is not either that or this, okay, and you are not only this or that. So, it is a combination of both in the style that you adopt. So, as I said, there are various studies which have happened here, right. See a range of behavior, subordinate centered leadership, boss centered, you see. So, subordinate centered manager permits subordinates to function within defined limits. Boss centered manager makes the decision and announces it, autocratic style. And somewhere in between, you see this manager presents problem, gets suggestions, makes decision. He makes the decision, but he has participation. Look at this, somewhere in between. Manager presents tentative decision. Okay. That means he is not asking for full participation, but he is not taking the decision fully. Tentative decision, subject to change. It takes a few suggestions. All these styles you have to adopt depending on the problem, depending on the situation you are in, all right, and the context in which you are operating.
So are there any studies which shows that which is more effective?
There are many studies. They look for correlation, you know, in these studies, and they find correlations that certain styles are more effective, okay, in certain situations, and that's how they finally, all this is postulated, that these studies have shown this. For instance, it shows there is no one style which will give you the best performance. Excuse me.
Under certain situations, there are some styles which are successful.
Right.
So
Where no one knows, we can't have a manual giving you this. We can give you approaches. Huh? But when the situation arises, that's why we look at a case. The case that we are going to discuss now, about Anna Hazare, it was successful, but say it was not successful. Say someone reported to the police when he was whipped, Hazare was locked up. What would have happened? If there was no success, maybe it would have turned the other way. No situation is exactly the same. That's why there is no prescription. That's why you have management consultants, no, who help you. But then again, consultants don't tell you what to do. They take away a lot of money. But it's you as a manager who has to finally, as we say, I'm an electrical engineer, the moment of truth is you wired up all the circuit, everything in the lab, and then we always used to have a fear. The moment you put it, the fuse will blow, you know, something will blow up. So, pushing the button or throwing that switch, that the manager has to do. If it succeeds, he gets all the kudos, you know. If it fails, he gets the blame. And good managers, they don't take all the kudos, then he says, no, 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 it's nothing to do with me. It is my team, these people, you know, these are the people. But some managers may not have that style. Their style is, you know, they straighten their tie and they say, okay, thank you. So, it off hoega lakano? Okay. So, we can now come to the case, and before that, if you have any questions, tell me. Any questions? Right, then we come to the case. So, what we will do now, we will discuss this case on these questions. What sources of power and influence has Anna Hazare utilized? Think about it. What is power? You remember in first semester what you studied.
It's the ability to influence others to do things which others wouldn't normally do.
Right. What is influence? Come, those with long memories, what is influence? Obviously, he used some power, no, we call it leadership. What sources of power and influence has Anna Hazare used?
One of those sources was collective action.
Collective action. Is that a power source? Answer is yes.
So he was a great mentor.
Collective action. From the case, can you give some examples? What sort of collective action?
Sir, making schools and all those things by Shramdan.
Building the temple.
When he started building the temple, it was he himself.
But later,
You remember, the case says that a few were surprised, that is 20,000 rupees from Provident Fund savings, and he had just 475 rupees a month pension. He is putting his savings into building a temple. Some were surprised, and a few others were, they say, privately appreciative. Privately, they didn't want to come out in the open, because remember the situation there in that village. It had become a den of illicit liquor, near alcoholics or full-blown alcoholics. So, what is the second source of power? Collective action. Where did he draw his power from? Any other source? From the youth. Youth power. Yuva Shakti. And how did he draw power from the youth? How? Why did the youth come forward? Communication. What does the case say? What kind of communication?
he taught them the virtues of Swami Vivekananda and told them that if they come out.
He told the youth that?
In communication, he's shown both part of any action and then told them that if you are doing this, you will get these benefit and these harms. And based on that, they have taken that decision.
Isn't communication a powerful tool that he used in trying to have this collective action? Because if you remember, when he started building the temple, there were few people who were surprised, they were appreciated, but as the work went on and it was completed, what did it become? It became the focal point of culture, all right, and meeting point of the village. All of you have been to villages. One of the central things in any village in India is either a temple or a mosque and a school now. If you go now, 75 each may not have had, but nowadays you will have a school, right? And that is the focal point, because there isn't anything else. Now, once the temple was built, he encouraged people to come there, and since that was a point where people congregated, he had a ready-made audience, and he could talk to them and discourse, talk to them about his ideas, his values and beliefs, right? And he realized after some time that giving discourses is not good enough to achieve anything. Something else is required. What is required? What was required? They were all poor, impoverished. What was required is some action to show them that there are ways of improving the economic condition. Is it not? And how did he go about doing that? Okay. So, economic conditions. Imagine this situation where most of the men in the village are either making liquor and selling it. So, the economy was really revolving around what? Brewing of illicit liquor and selling it. That was the economy, no? Liquor economy. And what was the liquor economy doing? Money was being generated for a few, and where was that money going?
So it was turning out to be a vicious trap.
Vicious circle. So they were poor, they were getting loans, being indebted. Once you have the habit, the addiction, you have more alcohol, have more debt. So it was going into a vicious circle. So what was the first action he thought that is required to improve the conditions? Closing down the liquor, because that is what he thought is the main problem, priority 1 to be tackled. Closing liquor dens. And that is where, in order to close liquor den, he was going to come up with vested interests, isn't it? There were people who were making liquor. And that is where he found he can't do it alone. When you have vested interest to deal with, you require something which is more powerful. Okay, and what is that? People power. And in order to have people power, he started using the temple. Why? Why the temple? The reason is, villagers by and large, they probably felt that any commitment which they give in the house of God, that commitment they have to keep. And also, probably they felt that for many, many years, this is one person who came forward to give them some ideas, some leadership. Because remember one thing, the seed was sown when he started building the temple on his own. What gave him credibility? He didn't take a collection from villagers, collect money and make the temple, right, renovation. He committed his own hard-earned provident fund without asking anyone about it. Wasn't that a powerful way of conveying to people that this man is a very committed person? He is giving it not for himself, he didn't live in the temple, he was doing it for the people of the village. Don't you think that that would have had a powerful effect on him? So the act of giving not only got credibility for himself, but also it created for himself a source of power. I didn't teach you a class, power, but the first year what I said, who is the most powerful person in this world? Huh? Pope. Pope. Most powerful is a chap who has no needs. Think about it. He has no needs. He has no worldly possessions. He has no needs. When do you lose power? When you have needs. And when you have needs, who will satisfy the needs? Someone in the environment, no? If you have no needs, you are a sadhu, sannyasi. You have one blanket, one kamandalu, that's it, one loincloth. You meditate. You have no need. Do you agree with this?
No.
You don't agree. Tell me why. Tell me why.
What that person has power? Power when the Paraf when it defined power, the power to influence opinion, power to get some work and power to do some action.
Right.
That person has no power.
He has power. Let me answer. He has power.
No need, maybe.
All right. And that gives him power. Anyone who has need loses some of his power. If I have power over you, maybe because you need the marks. The moment you don't need these marks, I lose my power.
But why do you have that power to give that marks? Because you have knowledge. What that person has, which I am wanting. That person who is doing meditation, what does
But I
that
don't say I want to sell that knowledge. I lose power because I have to sell it to a client. I am a management consultant, but say I don't want to sell. I just want to meditate and consider the verities of life. That's it. Interdependence, and dependence. This is where you have a situation where you lose power.
Yes.
Yeah. So why should it be useful? Power only when the exercise of it, all right, it's defined as power. It's something dynamic. It's not a static concept. If I say you are powerful, you can walk out of the class, you can do this, you can do that, but you don't do it. That means you are not powerful, because by very definition, it's in its exercise that you see manifestation of power. Okay? Yes, tell me, Francis.
Having no needs is one part of the power, but someone needing you is the other part of the power. If you can have both, isn't it much more powerful?
Sure. So here, let's come back to this case. Did he have a need? Say they kept on having alcohol. How would Anna lose? Tell me. He wouldn't lose. He has his $475.
No, sir, but it was his parents' village, and he was here. He came back to this village to live peacefully the rest of his life. And when he saw this, there is no peace here.
Yeah.
So that was his need. So from that
All right.
he started.
There is some need. It was his own village. He wanted a better surroundings, better village and so on. To that extent, yes. But basically speaking, he was doing it for the community. Was he not? Basically, if you look at the case, was it for a private agenda?
So
It doesn't.
cause expanded and community came in. But when he started rebuilding the temple, he started living in that temple from rebuilding process. At that moment, he wanted peace. He found that peace.
He
in
wanted
that temple.
to take over the temple, is it?
Maybe.
I don't think
I
so.
don't know.
Yes, Srivats, I don't
But
think
he
so.
was living in that temple only.
He had gained faith, and he also had this determination to do service, which is the reason why he did what he did. If he hadn't, so his determination to do service to people.
But did he want anything in return?
No,
You lose credibility when you have some private agenda. You say you are doing it for janta, like our politicians. We often find that we don't believe what they say. Why? Because their actions, all right, is that they are doing it for their private needs. But they are saying that they are doing it for community needs. Now, in this case, it is clearly not so. So, because of the fact that he started putting his own money into the temple without asking anyone for any return, and basically the temple was not his property,
But the
it
return
was for the whole village.
But return was that he started living in that, and nobody questioned that. That was the return. That was the return.
Will you read out the portion where he says that he commandeered the temple and started living in it and made it his property.
Small room inside the complex after.
But that was much later.
Much later.
No, sir.
Yes.
Sir, during the process of renovation.
Read it out. Read it out to me. That was the camp office. If we set up a project and you are the project manager, we'll make you a.
Santosh has a valid point. For 20,000, you would have found a better accommodation.
Yes. Okay. Neeraj, I don't think others agree with you. I think your interpretation we do not agree. I think he was trying to do social work selflessly. Why? Why? Tell me. Because the fact that he was not killed in the 65 war, everyone around him died in the truck, all right? A bullet whizzed past, bruised his forehead, but didn't kill him. So did he not say? He felt that he feels as if he is reborn. And there must be a reason why he has been spared, why his life has been spared. And that is the reason. He says, maybe now I have to do something, I am a new person.
Because after reading Vivekananda's books, he said that his own source of happiness lay in service to others.
Yes.
So basically, he was
Yes.